perhaps give me a tip. Okay, we're recording.
You're good.
Good evening, one and all. My name is Mohamed Rawanme, Executive Director of Bustan Seeds of Culture. I welcome you to this evening's panel discussion titled Queer Spaces, a panel discussion on queer SWANA visibility in the arts, led by marvelously multidisciplinary artist Martin Zebari, and engaging other SWANA artists of note, whose identity you will soon learn. Tonight's engagement is the second of three comprising Being Seen, SWANA Visibility and Perspective in the Arts, featuring Zebari along with artist Lina El-Maligi. Remaining of the three is a workshop led by both to close. Bustan is delighted to lend a forum for SWANA artists to produce discourse relating to how artists of backgrounds from Southwest Asia and North Africa move in an America of 2021. I would like to thank our funders and donors, without whose support we would not be positioned to bring you such arts programming. These include public and private foundations, funds, and collectives: Asian Mosaic Fund, the Ford Foundation, Independence Foundation, the Local Initiative Support Corporation, PNC Arts Alive, the Samuel F. Bells Fund, the Southwest Asian Mutual Assistance Association Coalition, the Stockton Rush Bartle Foundation, and the William Penn Foundation, as well as federal, state, and local government entities, those being the Philadelphia Council on the Arts, the Philadelphia Cultural Fund, and the U.S. Small Business Administration. I would be remiss not to thank all of the individual donors whose support has long sustained Bustan with care and commitment, including audience members graciously joining us today. We welcome your donation at any point. We also welcome our audience to our space. Our virtual space is your virtual space. I now pass on the MC duties to my stupendous colleague, Sarah Prad, to introduce our esteemed guest artists and to MC tonight's event. Cheers.
Thank you, Mohamed. Welcome everyone to tonight's panel, Queer Spaces, a panel discussion on queer SWANA visibility in the arts. I'm going to take a few minutes to just introduce our panel artists. First, we have Martin Zebari, who is an Iraqi-born Assyrian-American actor, writer, and advocate based in Chicago. His first full-length play, Leia Lina, was developed in Goodman Theater's Future Labs. As an actor, he has worked nationally with Atlantic Theater Company, National Queer Theater, The Angle Project, and Goodman Theater, among others. Martin holds a BFA in acting from the Arts University of Bournemouth, England, and is represented by Stewart Talent Chicago. Martin will also be teaching a workshop this Saturday, the 16th at 4 p.m. called Stories Retold, Writing for the Stage and Camera. If you would like to register for that, you can find the link in Bustan's Instagram bio and also in our upcoming events page on our website. Next, we have NAXO, who is an Egyptian non-binary multidisciplinary sound artist and sound healer based in Chicago. NAXO uses sound and music to explore psychological narratives, subjectivities, and streams of consciousness to navigate personal transformations. And their work has been featured in Chicago Reader, Chicago Zine Fest, Windy City Times, and Philly Weekly. Thank you so much for being here this evening for the panel, and I will hand the discussion over to Martin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. What a lovely introduction. I was going to say all that stuff, so that's great. You got that out of the way. Hi, everyone. I'm Martin. I use he, him, or they, them pronouns. And I'm joined here by the lovely NAXO. NAXO, is there anything else you wanted to add to your lovely introduction before we get started? You're on. Oh, I don't think we can hear you. It's good to get this out of the way. I'm glad we're figuring this out now. I don't think we can hear you yet.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there you go. Yes.
Beautiful. Hi, everyone. What a lovely introduction. I love this. Was beautiful, beautifully said. I appreciate it. It's good to be here and see all of you. I'm really excited to share this space and talk and process. Um, yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So just a little bit how this is going to go, folks. It's going to be a really chill, informal evening. Definitely, you know, grab whatever you need to grab to relax and chill. It's going to be super, you know. I'm just going to start us off with a little conversation about kind of the art world that we want to see in the future and that we want to live in and work in. And it's open, you know, I'm going to mostly be talking to Sarah and Naxo, but please don't feel like you can't interject or turn your cameras on if you want to be present with us visually or not. And yeah, you know, no hand raising, basically. Just please, if you have anything to ask further about or want to hear, please feel free to just join us. So in terms of this room, you know, I think so often queer voices in an effort to try to kind of have our voices heard, we in turn get othered sometimes in art spaces because the focus is made on our queer identities and not about our artist identities. And so in that way, when folks are trying to include us, it ends up doing the opposite effect. And like, we kind of get boxed in as these like, I'm a queer artist, whereas like, I'm just a playwright and an actor, and my queerness is of course a part of my work in every step of the way. And I'm sure y'all can also agree, but I wanted this space to, instead of talking about like how we feel as queer artists, just like what we want to do as artists in this space, in the art world, and like how we can collectively get and make the space that we want to see and be in and work in. And so that's what this night is kind of dedicated for. There's no kind of expectation for anyone to, you know, speak on anything that they don't want to speak about. And so I would love to kind of pose to Sarah and Naxo, and, you know, whoever wants to take it first, what kind of art do you aim to create in the world, whatever discipline that you're in? I know, Naxo, you're a musician. Sarah, do you want to tell us at all about your art practice? I know you work with Bustan in a more administrative capacity, I think, but please feel free to tell us about your art practice.
Sure. Well, I didn't expect to be talking about my art practice. Yeah, so I just recently came onto the Bustan team. I am the operations and technology coordinator. So I will be doing a lot of like media art-based projects with Bustan in the future. And my artwork primarily falls into two very different categories. I do a lot of video and computer art, and I work with a lot of code, like glitch art, taking found footage and manipulating it in different computer processes. And then I also do a very different medium, which is I work in textiles. So I do a lot of wet felting and take inspiration from a lot of very old, ancient Northern African and Asian like practices of working with wool. So two very different, one very old, one very new. One's very physical, one's very virtual.
Incredible. Do those two ever combine?
For my upcoming work and show, yeah, I figured out a way to combine them. So stay tuned. Yeah.
Incredible. I'd love to ask you more about that in a little bit.
Sure.
Naxo, how about you? What kind of art do you hope and aim to create in this world of ours, in this beautiful, complicated world?
First, I want to say thank you, Sarah, for sharing about you. It's really lovely. So exciting to hear the type of work that you do. Looking forward to see more and know more. Back to you, Martin. For me personally, my main goal when I create art is to deconstruct the existence, to allow nakedness, to allow questioning, to allow inclusivity in all possible ways, to embrace the non-binary, to embrace our limitless experience as humans.
Amazing. And when you say to allow nakedness, and I know that could be taken in a literal sense, but what can you explain what that means more to you, whether
So,
it be literal or not?
of course. So nakedness comes in so many forms. And for me, I speak of liberation. I speak of disconnecting from all constructs that doesn't serve us, that stand in our way of being who we are.
Beautiful. Amazing. I love that. I love that kind of train of thinking for making art, like what constructs are serving us and which are not, which are getting in the way, and just kind of how we navigate those two. That's amazing. Sarah, is there anything else? Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, please.
Yeah, because like we represent futurism, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we gotta live it, because part of living it is manifesting it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really relatable for me as an artist in general, but I think especially on this new endeavor, I've been an actor for most of my artistic life, and the pandemic forced me to become a writer because I wasn't able to act. And so I wrote my first play, and it's just amazing how much you figure out through your own art, these kind of preconceived notions and boxes. And like, I would write something that was freshly on my mind that is very close to my lived experience, and I'd write a scene out and just kind of test it out and then read it and maybe have somebody else look at it. And like the things that I didn't see, right? Like to me, they're just normal. I'm just writing about my experience, but then somebody else can read it and interpret something completely different, and cause me to be able to look at myself and my life in a completely different way, and then think like, where did I learn this? Why, like, whether it's a positive or negative, like how did this construct or how did this like kind of concept come into my life at what point, and at one point did it infiltrate my art? And so that's really, really cool to think about art in that way, and to think about like revolutionary art in that way. So thank you for offering that. Sarah, was there anything else you wanted to add to what NAXO was saying, or anything that spoke to you? By the way, everyone, Sarah didn't even know she was participating in this until 5 minutes ago. I was like, hey, you want to be on the panel?
Yeah.
So thank you, Sarah.
Oh, no problem. I definitely think that the idea of like exploring your own self through art as like especially because as queer people, we are always looking for like a safe space, right? And so I think that, for me in particular, like art is a space where I can have the control that sometimes I don't feel like I have in other spaces. I have like the safety that I feel. And I think that also the idea of manifesting what you want to see through art. I think that with my work, in particular. Like a lot of my work is about people's relationship to pop culture. So I take a lot of footage from movies or music videos. And I think that really what I like to do with my work is create the type of, I mean, representation is a really tricky word, but I like to create a space that someone who is maybe a young queer kid, like when I was as a kid, like has representation or has an environment in art that they can see themselves in. Because I think that was really something that I was really like hungry for when I was younger. And so I had a lot of different like mixed matched favorite things when I was younger that kind of helped me figure out who I was. But a lot of that was from books and TV shows. And like, I mean, I think that if there was like an Arab Xena the Warrior Princess like television show, I would have turned out like so different. But I think that like creating this space that I like of representation that I would want to have seen when I was younger is like something that's really important for me as an artist. And then it's also, yeah, like a space where I can look back and say like, yeah, where did I learn this? Where did I start to feel this way about this part of my identity and among other things?
Yeah, that's so amazing. I've been running into something so similar, which is with this play, whenever it happens somewhere new or we do a reading of it or something, there's always this like, wow, like there's so many queer SWANAs who are coming to your play. Like I didn't know they were all here. And it's like, because you've never thought about them. You've never thought to find them. You've never thought to look for them, to reach out, to center them in the, and their narratives. And so, I think just literally the title and synopsis of my play was like a bunch of people felt seen just to like have to even see the words queer and SWANA in the same page. And, then, and it's always brought incredible opportunities of gathering and community because a bunch of people who think that they're alone are suddenly in a room together, connecting to the same thing and realizing that they're not alone. So that, yeah, I really love that you spoke about like a younger self. I think about that often.
Pretty sure my mic is off. Look at this person's couch. Look at her sitting there watching. Oh no, why is she so still? Oh my god, it's adorable.
Suja, I think your microphone's on. But welcome. Yes, thank you, Sarah. Does anyone in the audience, I can only see you, Amanda Chin. I don't know if that's your actual name. That's just what it says. But please feel free to chime in if you would like to answer that question or tell us about your art practice. Please feel free to jump in. Or anyone else who is unseen at the moment. Yeah. Okay, Naxo, what kind of art fascinates and intrigues you? Oh, Pierce, did you jump on to speak? Please do. Please do.
Yeah, I just want to say hi. I'm also part of Bustan. Oh yeah, we emailed each other and stuff too.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, to give a little background. My focus has been I guess like I'm a film and television major at Drexel University right now. And I've had the privilege to work with Bustan, just helping with videography and civic work and everything. So yeah, I'd love to help with the panel too at any point too.
Can you tell us a little bit more about civic work and what that means in context to Bustan?
Yeah, so a little bit of what Bustan does as far as civic work, like we've helped with voter registration, we've helped with block parties where like we'll give out food or we'll partner with others to help give out vaccines. Like we've done that in the past. We've also helped host concerts. Yeah, just overall, just trying to help the community. Um, also through representing like Arab cultures and everything, but also being open to everybody at the same time. So like that's what's been a lot of the civic work so far. Like I'm still fairly new, but that's kind of the stuff I've been involved with and I've seen.
Amazing. Yeah. And I mean, just hearing you speak about all these things, I'm like, this conversation is so beyond art too, right? It's like it goes into everything that you're saying, any kind of community engagement where we can create space for each other and for ourselves. Thank you for sharing that. Someone asked if it's possible to provide links to the works of Sarah and NAXO and PEERCE. So please, folks, Sarah, NAXO, PEERCE, Amanda, anyone who's here, feel free to throw in your websites or your Instagrams or your link trees, so that folks can follow along on your beautiful, wonderful journeys. And no one asked, but I'll just put in my website there too, just to round it out. Cool, awesome. Thank you, PEERCE. NAXO, what kind of art fascinates and or intrigues you?
There's so many types of art that fascinates me. But sometimes I find myself fascinated just by all forms of art, really, and inspired by even the little tiniest things of it. But mostly I lean towards art that challenge the perspective of us doing what we do on daily basis, that make us more conscious, closer, and more present. I love high forms of art that inspire edgy imagination. So as an example, avant-garde type of arts, always a big go-to for me.
Thank you, Mirza. Sarah, how about you?
Art that inspires me?
Inspires, fascinates, intrigues, any of the above.
So I think that I've been thinking a lot about how much I really wish I was, I mean, obviously everyone can be anything they want, but I wish I had the money to be a painter, like, and get like oil painting. There's something really like, I know this is very romanticized, but I think that there's something very sexy about painting, the idea of also being able to just, for someone like me, who I also went to film school, and that's where like a lot of my video practice comes out of, my education there. I struggle a lot in my practice with the idea of abstraction, because I love art that also is accessible and kind of can play on an audience's understanding of narrative and viewership, so that they can, sometimes I think like art can be kind of intimidating for people. And, the idea of art for me, it's really important to not fall into, especially in the art world where artists, especially in the US, have very few resources sometimes, like the idea of, making your art for a specific group of people. And I think that I try to make art that's like accessible to people, that doesn't, that they will be able to understand and relate to, because otherwise then like, what's the point? And so I think that, yeah. And so I think that, that's been a real interesting thing in my practice, is like looking at artists who play with abstraction and looking at like why why do I relate to something that really has no overt like narrative, I guess, or is maybe more made about process. This is also like why I like textiles, is because it in itself is like this type of abstraction. Like there's certain, you know, depending on what method you're using, like if you're knitting or, you know, doing embroidery, you have like maybe more control over something than the work that I'm doing, which I'm, you know, still struggling with and processing because it's a really imperfect practice. There's only so much I can control about how it's going to look. And so I'm always really interested in artists and artworks that are kind of able to be accessible to a wide audience, but also are able to play with abstraction or play with process in a way that is, yeah, I guess that's just like more free is sort of how I see it, I guess.
I'm so happy you brought up resources. I hate being the one who's always the one who's like, it doesn't matter. Can people afford it? So I'm really glad that you took that on. I find myself in that conversation so much. Like, it's so great that we can express ourselves and that we can put ourselves into our work, whatever that work is. And if people can't freaking afford to see it or to witness it, what is it for? And if only those who can afford to see it get to see it, what is it for? What are we doing? And like, how is that serving our, you know, our younger selves in a way, right? Like the younger versions of us who are like learning about capitalism and this industry and how harsh it is. So I really appreciate you saying that. And something I just kind of connected that I find fascinating is the three of us all have specific art practices, but we all are in fiber arts in some way or other. Like it kind of infiltrates our work in a different way. I know, Naxo, you and I, when we were in Philly at that exhibit, we just had like a whole conversation about all the cool things we were going to make and, you know, like all this textile based art. And this wasn't really a plan, one of the questions, but like, I'd love to know if y'all have thoughts as to why the three of us maybe share that side love for textiles and like tangible things. I mean, the easy answer is like, it's been a part of SWANA culture forever and like since the beginning of time. But like, what do y'all have thoughts as to like why we connect to that form of art and like reconstructing it? Let's see, Nava said museums exist ideally to fill the gaps between commodified art objects and more ambitious, community-driven, engaging work. Absolutely. And I think sometimes even museums are inaccessible to certain people. Like you know, there's always student rates or, you know, but even those sometimes, yes. Thank you, Nava. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. Cool. Yeah, do y'all have any thoughts on that? It's not really like a, you know.
Can you repeat quickly?
Yeah, I'm just kind of connecting the dots in textile and like fiber art being like a part of our practice, even though it's not our like main focuses, but just like that it exists in all of our work. And I'm wondering as to if y'all have thoughts as to why, or like what about it, you know, fascinates you or like makes that a part of your work.
So for me, I love design and I love patterns and colors and playing with textures and blockings. I love jewelry. I love metal. I love wood. I find myself expanding also to other material when it comes to jewelry, but I just really think of myself as an existing art, and I can be anything any day. I'm a shapeshifter and time traveler. I have like the opportunity to experience so much of who I am through different forms of textiles. And growing up with women of my culture who are so fabulous, who are so rich in their embroidery patterns and usage of different forms of material in ways that just really elegant, really expensive, and not like just like expensive as in like money or so. I mean expensive as in everything.
Yeah.
Um,
Wealthy in non-currency ways.
absolutely.
Yeah. Beautiful. Sarah, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that, like you mentioned, textiles is a huge part of SWANA culture. And I think that has something I think that's why I gravitate towards it, as well as I'm really fascinated by pattern design. And of course, that's also a huge part of SWANA culture. And, I am really fascinated by the pattern design of, whether it's like the ceramic tiles in the Levant or in Turkey, and or the rug making in Northern Africa, or like there's so, I mean, I could like list all of this, but like there's this huge wealth of pattern design, of color, of different types of textiles in the SWANA region. And I think for me, that fascination was also kind of mixed in with the fascination I have of the actual practice of felting, which is like a very ancient practice. Also, it's this idea of just basically taking raw wool that you would take from a sheep and then flattening it into something that's wearable or that is insulation for housing. And so I think that, I got really fascinated by this practice of like, I guess of the process of felting. I can explain a little because I don't think it'll make sense. Is like, for wet felting, like I'll take raw wool, which is like, already really cool to work with because it's super fuzzy and colorful. And I basically flatten it using water. And it's a process of agitation where I will kind of massage it with my hands, or I will like roll it up and just roll it. And it's like, sometimes it's like a 7-hour process. And so I think that, and it's like also just like sometimes you'll ball it up and you literally will like throw the piece against a wall or something. Like you just have to agitate it, and it's such a physical process. And it's just like you can feel the materiality of it. And I think for me, also as a computer and video artist, I'm always working in virtual spaces. It's not always fun to just like sit in front of my computer for hours animating. And so it's always really nice to have a process where I can like feel the actual art being made. There's something really nice about that. And also being able to incorporate, the history, like my history of, including pattern design and fibers practices and textile practices from the SWANA region it feels really good to be able to do that all in one.
Incredible. I am so inspired right now. I'm like, I need to organize a textile jam session, a SWANA textile jam session where we have all this material and all these tools, and we just get together and like freaking just sounds incredible. Nava, thank you for this thought. I'll just read it aloud just for the recording's sake. NAXO, I want to know more about your work in wood. Material-based art is the most exciting in so many ways. The way that materials like wood offer a conceptual subtext is a sign of generosity, but also an opportunity to connect directly with culture, heritage, and intergenerational identity. Do you want to take that on, NAXO?
Oh, it's beautiful. I really appreciate.
Thank you for a beautiful question now.
Truly, yeah. So my play with wood is always into making earrings, making necklaces, making bracelets, making crowns, just playing with wood in different ways. I love carving, like carved wood. And it's like one of my favorite pieces. I just gifted to one of my really good friends. It's made from coconut, and it's like a leaf, like two big coconut leaves. Like it's a leaf pot.
Do you have them?
Yeah, I have them, but I just give them. I just give them away. But I just have pictures I can show you.
Oh, please throw those in the chat if you'd like, if you find them. That sounds incredible. I want to see it. Amazing. Thank you for that question, Nava. Let's see. I have this question. How has the industry helped or hindered your goals and your vision for your own art making and for the art that you want to create? Whatever discipline that is for you. Yeah, has it helped or hindered, and how? Sarah, do you want to take this? While Naxo looks for these incredible earrings.
Sure. So I think for my work, like obviously in the US, it's a little different because I think in other areas, I work a lot with Canadian film festivals, and I get paid, which is different than I think working in a lot of like smaller US institutions sometimes. But I think that having accessibility, like, to resources is really, it can be a hindrance sometimes. So one of the reasons why I work in found footage is because when I got out of film school, I moved to a few different cities, and then I finally moved to Philly, and I was like, okay, I'm coming from this traditional film school. This is kind of what I know how to make. And I was like, but I don't really know anyone. Like, I don't have a crew like I had when I was back at school. Like, where am I going to find like a sound person? Where am I going to find like Arab or SWANA actors and actresses? Like, where am I going to get this community? And so working with found footage is sort of how I got around that, because I was like, well, I'm a really good editor. And I think that, the internet is vast with moving image content. And so that was something that, I've really continuously had to overcome, is like a lack of financial resources for art making. And then like, also, most of us have full-time jobs that help us support ourselves. And so like finding time is a huge resource, finding, money to, even if you can get a grant, like that takes time, like to apply for it, to get your portfolio together. And so I think
resources.
Yes.
It takes resources to get resources.
Exactly.
Like credit.
Yeah, I mean, like, even just like for some artists, it's like even getting the internet access to apply for a grant is like, that's a lot. Or like getting space, studio space. And I don't know how it is in Chicago, but like I am in my studio, which is a small room in my house that I just stuff with all of my materials. But I think basically like that's the biggest obstacle. And then also, my work is it's very intersectional. Like it's about being queer. It's about mental health. It's about being an Arab American. And that intersection honestly sometimes scares people, or, they don't really know how to, sometimes if they're in the community, they're like, I think it's another reason why I use found footage is it's easier to use in order to talk about things that might be a little bit more sensitive for myself. Like it helps protect my family if I'm talking about things relating to my family history and mental health. And then for people that I think are outside of the community, sometimes they just don't know how to really access it, or they're sort of like, they're like, oh, well, we don't know how to handle this, or like, it doesn't seem, I think that it can be really intimidating if you're also like an artist that's like, yes, this is what my work is about. Like everybody get in line, and so I think just being able to find spaces where that type of work is welcomed, having financial resources, having the time to put all of it together, those are definitely the biggest obstacles, at least for me as an artist.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Naxo, do you have any thoughts on that? How has the industry helped or hindered your goals for the art and the world you want to see and make? Your industry specific to your discipline.
So it's really interesting because like all aspects of my life intersect and kind of end up being in a like very different space. So I end up being like looked at like, whoa, oh my goodness, or like really being hated, just it's not for everyone, when they are ready, when everybody's healed and able to take it in and acknowledge who they are, right? Be there for themselves so they can be there for the world. So yeah. So I would say like I had so much support from different communities, from different audiences, different backgrounds, different tongues. It's beautiful. And on the other end, there is the sides that has a lot of judgment or has a lot of rejection or discrimination even. Unfortunately, usually passive, very hard to deal with. Yeah, Semix, it's a journey. We're trying to make it.
Yeah. And I feel like the sooner we all realize that we're all on the same journey and that we should all be like pushing each other and together, it's like the only way to move forward. There's which takes us, kind of thinking about this like mainstream way, takes us to a question we have in the comments from Aram Atamian. General question for everyone: as queer culture steadily absorbs into mainstream culture, do people feel a call to challenge or redefine queerness in their artwork? Does anyone want to take that? I have thoughts. For sure, I have thoughts on that. But if anyone else wants to take that first? Well, I'll say thank you, Aram, for this question. I think this year I've like this whole year as an artist, I would say I've spent like thinking about this question, and it really wasn't until I started writing that I even thought about it, because as an actor, you kind of are powerless. You're fulfilling a role and a job, and you're like a placeholder, and you just kind of get plugged into something, and you have no control over how it was made, how it will be made, what is, you just kind of are acting as a little teet, 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 teet. I will do whatever you need me to do. And then when I started writing, I was like, oh, wait, I have to think about how this will be perceived, which you're not really thinking about as an actor. You're just kind of like trying to blend in and trying to not stick out. And yeah, I've had to actively change the way that queerness is portrayed in my play, just because of the world changing. My play also takes, like, half of it takes place in 2020. So like there are so many things to grapple with in that year, with like COVID, BLM, trans rights. Like there's just so many things that are coming full circle that have happened in this year. And I feel like with every development in the world, there is more weight to the way that I'm portraying queer people. There is more of like an importance to resist the status quo and to make sure that I'm representing like my own perspective and not speaking for an entire community. And that's been in my mind a lot. I mean, it's not like I'm trying to redefine it for the sake of redefining it. I don't give a crap if people think it's original or revolutionary, but like stepping out of my own preconceived kind of internalized, whether it be homophobia, transphobia, like I'm constantly having to think about that through my artwork and evolve it as the world passes. Do y'all have thoughts about that, Mirza or Sarah? Sorry, Naxo. Called you by your human name.
How dare you?
Not your deity name.
It's a really great question. I personally find myself as a non-binary person always in a place when I am not asked to belong as much, and I'm not required to belong. And yeah, I can be there. I'm parts of everything, but it's tricky. So
can you talk a little bit more about that? What being asked to belong?
So it's the belonging of having to take one side and to consistently be confined to neglect the rest of the spectrum. Like, why do I have to be 100%? Why? What about the 30% and 70% or this and that or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Like, why does it have to be 100% or 0%? You know?
Absolutely. All or nothing mentality. It's like,
yeah,
it's a
so
killer.
just be, I personally try to be myself and also hold space for folks in my presence to be themselves, to just be. Like, even when I try to think too much about my lyrical content, I just recognize consistently the conscious I put a lot of effort into to have the content or the context of my lyrics perceived by the receiver and not necessarily through my eyes or through my soul. It's like leaving space for you to relate, for you to know that this is not only my song, but it's actually also your song.
Yeah. Like having like kind of like community engagement is just always a part of the work. It's not an extra step that you take after. It's like always with other people in mind, which I think is such a beautiful framework for that. Thank you, Aram, for that amazing question. That was really great.
Thank you so much, Aram. So good to have you. Love you.
Aram is
Mwah.
chilling in the bathtub, having a great old time.
Yes.
Sarah, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think just to go off of what you both said, I think there is, I mean, I think also like the idea of redefining queerness is like, you know, the idea is that queerness wouldn't really even be defined as a specific thing because you don't want to fit, you know, someone into this box, this idea of like, yeah, like, why do I have to be 70% something and 30% something, you know, why do I have to match these specific requirements? And so I think that especially when, yeah, queer culture is starting to become more integrated with mainstream culture, there is the challenge and pressure felt by queer artists to, yeah, like look at how we represent the queer community, like how we represent ourselves. But I think also part of the, you know, the struggle is that like you want to be able to, I know for me personally, like I don't want anyone to tell me what, you know, like what it means to be queer or like what it means to be Arab or what it means to be a femme. And I want to just be able to be those things myself and then have someone be like, yeah, okay, that is queer. That's a queer Arab femme right there. And I think that like, yeah, you're always between this space of like trying to be, you know, like, yeah, you need to represent the queer community and like really look at how we, you know, show ourselves to the world, but then also you don't want to get mixed into these kind of these labels or these sort of, you know, like situations where you're actually doing like more harm than good by saying like, you know, like it's sometimes that can be, it can sort of like devolve where it's like, oh, well, I'm trying to spend so much time fitting in with certain labels that it then sort of, you know, it's like, well, is that just internalized homophobia or like internalized Orientalism or, you know, like all these things. So you're really like always kind of walking this line. But I think all of us sort of are in the same mindset where we're like, whatever we are is, you know, that is the queer identity that we're putting forward. And, you know, hopefully people can sort of accept just the idea of like the multifaceted and like universality of queerness.
Yeah, so amazing. Oh, y'all are brilliant, just brilliant. I've just loved listening to you both speak about your work, and it's just so inspiring and so just like refreshing to hear someone else's like inner process. And I'm still like stuck on our shared kind of experiences in our art making and also our uniqueness in it as well. Yeah, it's just beautiful. That conversation about textiles really got me going. I'm just like, it is, it's our own little armor. It's just a little armor. It's metal and it's wood and it's things like animal products, things that are been in our, in our hands forever. And I love viewing our art as this like armor, but not necessarily to push people out, but to like wear it and to wear it proudly and like show it off. That's so beautiful. Amazing. Thank you all. This has been so lovely. Thank you to our wonderful audience who's been asking amazing questions. And thank you to Sarah and NAXO. Sarah, is there a way for us to save this chat? Because everyone put their socials in it, and I just don't want to lose that.
I can do like
You can like save chat, but I don't know how to do it.
I can see what I can do. If I can't save it, I will screenshot it and I can follow up with the people who registered. I think will be
that would be great. And maybe just like if that's not too much work for you, just to like send people each other's things, just so that folks can stay. If you record the conversation, the chat is automatically saved. Thank you, Nava. Okay, so if you record the conversation, the chat is automatically saved. I think it'll just get saved to another, under your Zoom folder, it'll just be like chats or something. So we'll work on trying to get that to you folks. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Sarah, for jumping in.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Of course, it's been so lovely to meet and talk to you. And thank you, NAXO. You're wonderful.
Thank you so much, Habibi. I appreciate all of you so much. Talking with you has been so wholesome.
Yes,
and I look forward to I really look forward to having more of these talks and definitely collaborating.
Amazing.
Yeah, I want a big Zoom SWANA Fibers night or something.
Where are you
amazing.
in Philly, Sarah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe we just have
we'll start figuring something out.
Okay, you're all incredible.
Beautiful.
Have a wonderful night. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
See
Good
you
night,
all
everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you so much.
تصبحوا على خير.
تصبحون على خير.